So I want to give you a little bit of background on who I am and how ended up being here speaking to you all today. And again, thank you for the invitation. I started practicing at the Cleveland Clinic in 1996 as a family doctor. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and it was always my dream to come back and help take care of the very population of which I grew up in. And my dream was met on October 28, 1996, the date that I was hired. And for 17 years, I practiced as a traditional allopathic family doctor in Solon, Ohio, at one of the family health centers. And I had a wonderful practice. I truly adore my patients. I feel like they're family. And as part of that practice, I feel like one of the things that I was really doing was helping to manage illness, not really focusing on what root cause was, because I really didn't even understand what that concept was. In medical school, we are taught a certain way, and a lot of it is identify a disease state and treat with medication. And so, like most other providers, I was bought and sold by pharma. After I obtained my MBA, I was given the opportunity to become the Chief Operating Officer and Vice Chair of the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute in September of 2013. And being such a passionate educator, whether it's teaching medical students, residents, or most importantly, my patients, I wanted to continue to educate. And because of my position, the local paper, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, had asked if I would be interested in writing a monthly column to help identify issues in wellness that could help people achieve a higher quality of life. And so in January of 2014, I started writing this monthly column. As a primary care doctor at the Wellness Institute, I want to just give you a little more background about how the evolution of my practice changed. I began working side by side with some very incredible people, very passionate people, who were very different from the traditional allopathic providers that I was working with for the previous 17 years as an attending. These were people who were certified in lifestyle medicine, integrative medicine, and functional medicine. One of the difficulties that patients have when they see an integrative or functional medicine specialist is going back to a primary care physician and sharing that experience. The primary care doctor will often do a lot of eye rolling, a lot of head shaking, a lot of disbelief in what they're being told they heard from that consult. And so there's this big disconnect between what people in functional and integrative medicine are doing and what people in, let's say, traditional primary care, allopathic primary care are doing. And so the providers in functional and integrative medicine at the Wellness Institute were looking for primary care docs who were like-minded and who would offer their patients an opportunity to work with a primary care doctor who didn't make the patient feel less than. But something interesting started to happen. As I started to share these patients with these integrative and functional medicine providers, I started to see people actually get better. It wasn't just about managing chronic disease and keeping people trapped in this illness model, which is the healthcare system that we understand and work in the United States. But people started getting off of medications, started exercising at a higher level. They were truly achieving a higher quality of life. And as I was sharing the medical record and seeing what the providers were doing in integrative and functional medicine, which really is just, taking primary care to a higher level, honestly, is what all primary care doctors should be doing, in my opinion, I started recognizing, this is something I could do. And so I started picking the brains of these medical professionals and saying, I'm really interested in this. Would you teach me what you're doing so that I could start to do this as well? And so for about the past 2.5 years, I've really been blending functional medicine into what would be considered a primary care practice. But as I started to practice more functional medicine and started to see that my patients were improving because we were identifying root cause, interestingly enough, it was cell biology, physiology, and biochemistry, the cornerstones of the first year of medical school, that we just dismiss after we take our board exam. It's like rote memorization, learn the Krebs cycle, never see it again. And I can't believe in 2018 now I actually refer to the Krebs cycle regularly. But the fact is that I began to finally see the correlation between what I was learning in medical school from 1988 to 1992 to the practice of medicine, something that I was really yearning for. So now we fast forward to 2017 in January. But first I must tell you something personal that happened to me in November. I too was working for a healthcare organization that required a flu vaccine. However, I was smart enough to recognize that I could take the preservative-free vaccine that didn't contain thimerosal, and I would be fine. So I took the preservative-free vaccine as I was required to do to keep my job, and within 12 hours, so this is November of 2016, within 12 hours, I was sick in bed with fevers, chills, muscle aches, and was sick at home for the next 48 hours. There were 4 other people in administration who took the shot on the same day, the preservative-free vaccine, who had the exact same symptoms. So when I got back to work and we were all commiserating on what had happened, I decided to look further into the vaccine and found out that even the preservative-free vaccine contains formaldehyde. And then I decided to start looking into other issues associated with vaccination. And I was listening to a podcast by Dr. Paul Thomas, who I feel is a hero in this story. The first one was when he was talking about the hepatitis B vaccine and the fact that we're injecting newborns on day 1 with a vaccine that contains 250 nanograms of aluminum. I had absolutely no idea that was the case. And I'm embarrassed to say that. And actually what I'm most embarrassed about is the fact that I didn't personally do my due diligence on vaccination. And as someone here who is speaking honestly to you, the public, about what's really going on in medicine, I am as culpable as any other medical professional because I did not do my homework when it came to vaccination. So not recognizing that we were giving this high dose of aluminum on the very first day, I had this aha moment personally. Because I have children that have food allergies. I have a child with celiac. And it really struck me, what have I done to my own family? In January of 2017, for my article for the Plain Dealer, this was the 37th article in the series, what I decided to do was take 2017 and make it the year of detoxification. I wanted to help patients identify where toxins are coming from in our environment, and then provide them ways that they could better detoxify. And so recognizing that we have mercury and aluminum in vaccines, amongst other preservatives that could potentially lead to chronic disease, I felt like it was important to discuss. In that article, I did discuss specifically about perhaps delaying the hepatitis B vaccine until patients had a more mature immune system. When that article came out, it was mind-boggling, to say the least. If I can tell you the previous article that I wrote in December of 2016, which was about how to stay healthy during the holidays, it had a total of 7 shares. The morning of January 7th, when I got a phone call saying that the article had been shared 25,000 times overnight, I said, wow, this is great. Dialogue is about to happen. This is exactly what I was looking for. Wow, was I wrong. What I found out was that I was stepping on a huge money trail that could potentially impact my employer. In previous articles, I wrote about corruption in the sugar industry and how they paid off researchers at Harvard University in the 1960s to say that it was saturated fat that was the problem in the American diet, not carbohydrates. And unfortunately, we went down the wrong rabbit hole. I went after big pharma, the food industry, and the tobacco industry without any problems associated with my employer. As soon as I hit a nerve that impacted my healthcare organization financially, all hell broke loose for me personally. On January 13th, 1 week after the article came out, I was relieved of my administrative duties. After being a loyal soldier for 20 years, I was allowed to continue to practice clinically, but essentially my career at the Cleveland Clinic was over. Sorry. In September, they dissolved my clinical area within the Wellness Institute, essentially letting me know that at the end of the year, I had to find other work. So these are my big issues regarding vaccines, and these are the things that I'd like to highlight. Number one, there is no education in medical schools that I am aware of. Their contents, safety records, informed consent, or the vaccine injury compensation program. What are we taught about vaccines? We are taught to memorize the vaccine schedule. And actually, I'm going to be sitting for my family medicine boards this year, and I am sure that I will have to memorize that schedule again in order to pass that exam. Number two, there appears to be a conflict of interest regarding payments to providers for completing vaccine schedules. And a corollary to that, which would be number three, patients are being dismissed from practices because of, quote unquote, vaccine safety concerns. If you bring up a question about a vaccine and you decide not to vaccinate your child, you may be at risk of being terminated from that practice. Absolutely deplorable and disgusting. Number four, but employers are forcing employees to receive the flu vaccine or face corrective action or job loss. Number five, there's a lack of informed consent, and I was one of those providers who didn't provide safety sheets before vaccinating. I would tell the parents, these are the vaccines today. We're going to give you 3 vaccines in one leg and 2 in the other. And then after vaccinating either the child or the adult patient, here's your information sheet. And again, to be completely transparent with you, I had no idea that there was even a mention of the compensation program or a telephone number to call. Absolutely deplorable on my part, and I apologize to my patients. Number 6, there's a lack of transparency regarding vaccine complications. And worse, you're being shamed as patients for suggesting that you were harmed by a vaccine. If I see a patient in the office and diagnose strep throat and give them penicillin, and either the mom or the patient themselves calls and tells me that they developed a rash, there is zero question. The chart now states they have an allergy to penicillin and will never be given it again. Why don't we believe parents and patients when they tell us they have had an adverse event regarding a vaccine? It doesn't make sense to me as a medical professional. Why do the placebos in vaccine studies contain the adjuvants like mercury and aluminum? Aren't placebos supposed to be inert? In other words, if you're comparing, let's say, the hepatitis B vaccine against the placebo, why does the placebo contain a metal? If the concern could possibly be the metal itself that's triggering the autoimmunity. Number 8, why has the rate of autism spectrum disorder gone from 1 in 1,000 in 1990, as I was taught, to 1 in 48 in 2017? So let me focus just a few minutes on informed consent. I want to make sure that my patients and all patients are fully aware of risks versus the benefits before undergoing any medical procedure, not just vaccination. Nobody should have to undergo an irreversible medical procedure unless they agree to it. And patients should not be dismissed from practices for choosing to decline a vaccine that's irresponsible on the part of the medical professionals. We need to take care of all patients, not just select few that agree with our position. Employees should not have to receive a medical intervention in order to keep their job. And the big question that I have is, why are we not protected under the Geneva Convention? So to me, the idea of forcing a medical intervention on someone without their consent goes dramatically against the Geneva Convention. And to me, moves to the point that it's an incredibly slippery slope, folks. Are women going to be forced to undergo a mammogram or a pap smear in order to keep their jobs? Are men going to be dismissed from medical practices because they refuse a digital rectal exam or a PSA for prostate cancer screening or a colonoscopy at age 50 for screening for colon cancer? Where does it begin and where does it end? There is much work to be done in this area as pharma is literally racing to provide us with more life-saving vaccines. Let me tell you, friends, they are working on over 140 vaccines at this time. Beware. This is coming. Throughout 2017, I have received a tremendous outpouring of support from literally all over the world. I just want to say thank you to everyone for helping me keep my chin up during a difficult year. What I now realize that this has been the kick in the behind that I personally needed to get out from under a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate in order to really do the work that I feel needs to be done, both in educating the public and taking care of my patients that have any chronic disease, but in the way that I really feel they need to be treated, not based on protocols and not under the thumb of a watchful eye telling me I must do this or do that or risk termination. And I will begin realizing that dream this coming Monday on January 15th when my new medical practice, Inspire Wellness, opens in Beechwood, Ohio. I will continue to fight for the rights of all patients, including the right to informed consent. And along with that, we must push to uncover the truths around vaccines, the real safety and efficacy data, not the ones that either the government or Big Pharma wants us to see that is really not the truth about what's going on regarding their safety and efficacy. And as I learned when I first stepped into the Wellness Institute, be open to new ways of thinking, and that's what we all need to do in medicine moving forward. I thank you for your time and good luck.